My sister's daughter had never spoken a word in her life. Everyone believed she was mute. But the moment her parents left the house, she looked at me and whispered something that made my blood run cold. Because what she said wasn't about her. It was about how I was going to pass away. Everything changed when the door slammed shut. As I looked outside and watched the taxi drive away, I noticed the flowers in the front yard swaying. Emma and David had gone on a Caribbean tour. For 5 days, I would be looking after their daughter, Sophie, 28, an accountant, a boring life. But this week would be different, something I didn't know at that moment. I turned around. Sophie was standing in the living room looking at me with those big, piercing eyes. She was 12 but looked younger. Always quiet. She had a tablet. She communicated by typing. Emma had told me once. She was born unable to speak. It was a neurological condition. They noticed it when she was 3. The doctor said there was nothing they could do. I hadn't questioned it. Why would I? "Hi, sweetie," I said, smiling at Sophie. "What can we do together?" Her tablet. The message read, "Auntie, don't drink that tea. Mom has a nasty plan." My hands froze. I read it word for word. I read it again. Ice formed on my head. My tea, the cup I left by the door. Emma's relaxing herbal tea. She said it was for stress, that I had worked too hard. Sophie's eyes. There was an openness in a 12-year-old child I'd never seen before. Fear, determination, responsibility. So much responsibility. "What's going on?" I whispered. I crouched down and adjusted my gaze to his. "Tell me everything." She quickly typed on her tablet and tapped the screen. Sentences emerged one by one. Each word pierced me like a knife. "Mom, I overheard you when I was 3 years old. She was talking to you on the phone. She was talking about foundation money. She called you stupid. She said a lot of things about money. The next day I asked her what she meant. Mom got very angry. She held my hands very tightly. Panic, rough and sharp, was rising within me. I read it. I felt secure, but also had a throbbing sensation in my head. I waited for him to write the continuation. Mom told me, "If I ever speak again, something terrible will happen to you. Your voice is dangerous. Every word hurts you. If you love me, don't make a sound. Do you understand? Never forget me. It would be much better for you if you didn't have a voice. I was 3 years old. I loved you very much. You brought those books, those picture books." I knelt down. The hard floor supported my weight, but I didn't feel like I was being supported. What I had heard, what I had learned. I couldn't even cover my head. Sophie wrote, 9 years I was silent. I lifted my head towards her. Tears had started to stream down my face. The girl moved closer and wrapped her arms around my neck. Small, strong arms. I was afraid I might hold her too tightly and suffocate her. But I wasn't sure what I was going to do. In the bright afternoon light, I sat in the apartment and began to process the system. My accountant brain kicked in. Dates, patterns, money, transfers of over $1 million. My mother's death 6 months ago. Emma's letter. No, my Emma's writing, Emma's psychopathy. My phone was picked up. I called Gwen, the nurse, my best friend. She answered on the second try and looked at my voice. It was enough for her to say, "Come right away." 45 minutes later, she was standing at the door. I told her everything. I told her about the whole afternoon. The tea, the plan, Sophie, 9 years of silence. Gwen didn't react at all. She was carrying the gloves she'd used in her bag. I didn't ask why the nurses had gloves in their bags. She took a sample of the tea. She went to the lab. She knew someone there. The lab results would be back by morning. "This is a scam," Gwen said, shaking her head. I always knew Emma was strange. She started working on it. In Emma's home office, a locked drawer. Sophie knew the combination. March 15th, she whispered. Their wedding anniversary. There was a document in the drawer. One of the bank authorization forms. It had my signature on it, but it wasn't my signature. It looked similar, very similar, but it was missing the correct L from my notes from 9 years ago. Anyone who knew handwriting would notice. $180,000, broken down just below federal limits, was stolen from escrow accounts. In the bank records, it was all there. A lawyer in Indianapolis, someone named Warren, emails about mental instability, about financial incompetence, fake therapist notes, doctor's reports, a folder filled with Emma's handwriting called My Mental Health File. Kevin. When I called Calloway, a college friend, now an assistant prosecutor, I could sense the horror in his voice. "This is serious," he said. "Very serious. I couldn't sleep that night." Sophie sat beside me, her eyes shining in the light of her tablet. I wanted to hug her, but she needed something more than a hug. Understanding, a head to rest on, a gentle nod, someone she could talk to. In the morning, I started acting, pretending to be sick. I pretended to drink tea. I emptied the cup, poured the cup she'd prepared down the sink. I buried the bags in the trash. I called Emma again. "I've been very ill," I said, keeping my voice weak. "I've been throwing up all night. I've been dizzy. I may need to go to the hospital." The reply was a text message. Ineffective, cold, pink heart emoji, exclamation mark. He hadn't asked, "Which one's the hospital?" He hadn't asked, "Are you all right?" He hadn't shown any concern about who would see Nola. Gwen called. "Tea results available. Strong sedative, laxative herb, neurological toxic effect. If it occurs, severe stomach problems, extreme drowsiness, confusion. 48 to 72 hours. Hospital-level patient." Emma wasn't planning to kill me. She was planning to disable me enough to spend the money on her theft. If she couldn't control Sophie for 9 years, she wouldn't have a problem controlling my semen for 9 days. 2 days passed. I continued in my role. Sophie was writing on her tablet, living under her roof, observing, learning, and remembering. A child who had gone without water for 9 years to save me. The third day arrived. Day to go to Indianapolis. Kevin's plan was working. The police were getting ready. The detectives. The FBI. Lawyer Warren had indicated that they would cooperate. Emma wouldn't know. She didn't want to know. Gwen and I were sitting on the balcony watching the uprising. Sophie took my hand. I stopped. "Day 4? He asked, typing on his tablet. "On the 4th day," I said. "It'll all be over." Sophie looked up. Her eyes seemed so old and so young. Perhaps both were true. The weight of 9 years of silence. "Good," he said, this time making a sound. A voice. Words. For me, the voice of a child who works hard, who loves me, who protects me. On the morning of the 4th day, Emma walked through the door to the office. Warren's office in Indianapolis. The conference room. The detectives would be there. The evidence would be on the table. And Sophie's voice, on record, every sharp, clear sentence. A new beginning. But there was a path to reach it. Emma's until you see it forming cells. In court, the judge would ensure she knew what she was saying. The entire case file would be shown to her. She would learn, finally. Emma would find out what was really under the mask. Sophie, she's sitting next to me on the couch. She's holding my hand. Very slowly, very sweetly, she asked, "Is it over?" But she said it, her voice thin and hesitant, but there. "Soon," I said. "Very soon, darling. Very soon." At that moment, everything seemed ordinary, but I felt a strange unease within me. Something unspoken circulated in the air, though no one else noticed. As I began paying attention to details, small signs began to make sense. Actions spoke volumes more than words. Silence wasn't an answer, it was an escape. As time went on, I couldn't ignore this feeling anymore. I realized that things weren't as they seemed. My questions multiplied, and the answers were delayed. At this point, I could no longer believe in coincidences. The truth was slowly revealing itself. Accepting it wasn't easy, but ignoring it was even harder. On the morning of the 4th day, police in Warren, Indiana. Ducker's law firm was on the 36th floor of a building downtown, offering panoramic views of the city through its large windows, but no one else would be able to enjoy that view. I wasn't there in person. Kevin had set up a secure video link. Sophie sat beside me, holding my hand tightly. Gwen is on my other side. The lobby camera was on my laptop screen. Emma and David walked through the door. It was exactly 10:15. Emma looked flawless, always. A professional gray suit, understated gold earrings, her hair gleaming in a perfect light chestnut color. Her face held a worried but controlled expression, as if this were just a routine business meeting, as if her life wasn't about to be stolen, as if she wasn't about to receive over $1 million. He was carrying a leather file. I recognized him. The file he'd taken from his house. It contained forged documents. All the lies were crammed inside. David looked stern. He was sweating. His shirt was damp at the armpits. His eyes scanned the lobby quickly, as if searching for a trap. He knew. He'd always known. But he hadn't stopped. A young woman was sitting at the reception desk. She smiled at Emma. "I want to see Ducker." Emma said, speaking in that sweet, honeyed voice. "I have an appointment." "One moment," said the receptionist, looking at the phone. "He'll pick you up." The hallway. Emma and David walked forward. A quiet sound came from the stairs. The detectives had taken up positions. The conference room door opened. Warren Ducker was sitting at the head of the table, old, gray-haired with a serious expression. He didn't stand up. He didn't shake hands. He just sat and waited. There were two other people. The male detective, Morrison. The female detective, Park. Both were simply dressed. Comfortable on the inside, cautious on the outside. Emma stood in the doorway. "I thought this was a private meeting," he said. There was a tremor in his voice for the first time. "Sit down," said Ducker. Emotionless. Not hostile, just emotionless. "Ms. Whitmore, this is Detective Morrison and Detective Park. We have some questions regarding the documents you have presented." Emma on the laptop screen. I looked into her eyes. Calculation, quick thinking, the determination to face anything. Secondly, she crossed her legs. She placed her hands on the table. Self-assured, still. "Of course I can help in any way I can," he said. Morrison spoke calmly, almost in a friendly tone. I wondered why he might be doing that. Perhaps it made him more effective. The suspect's defenses had lowered. They were retreating. "First," said Morrison, "can you verify your identity?" Emma handed him her driver's license. Morrison looked at it. He gave it to her. "Ms. Emma Whitmore, 47 years old. This is the address. Lisa's sister. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Did your parents serve as trustees?" "Yes, foundation funds, trust accounts, everything." Morrison placed two documents on the table. Side by side. "On the left," he said, "is the signature on the authorization form you provided. On the right is Lisa's actual signature, which we obtained from the bank records." At Emma. He looked at the documents. Then there was silence. "Can you explain why these signatures don't match?" 1 second. A full heartbeat. Panic crossed Emma's face. But the mask quickly fell. The answer was prepared. A lie was prepared. She always did this. "Lisa's handwriting is very messy," he said. "It's always been like this. She's stressed, depressed. She has balance problems. I've always seen her like this. Lacking substance, disorganized, always in a state of illusion." Park interrupted him. "Actually, we've reviewed your documents. Your notes regarding your sister's mental health." He paused. He looked at Ducker. "We learned that his employer described him as one of the most meticulous people. His doctor will mention his excellent health. His colleagues will say he was a very stable person." Emma's mask cracked. Her eyes moved. She was searching for a way to escape. "You understand," Morrison said. "That means no one else sees the girl you see. Maybe Lisa is actually a very different person. Maybe the problem is you." "No," said Emma. Her voice rose. "You don't know it. The inner life of the family. The truth." Park pulled out a tablet. "We have another piece of evidence," he said. "About you." "About your daughter." He pressed the play button. Sophie's voice filled the conference room, clear, unmistakable, absolutely unquestionable. "My name is Sophie. I am 12 years old, but I have been silent for 9 years. My mother threatened me when I was 3. She said that something bad would happen if I spoke to our relative, Aunt Lisa, that my voice was dangerous, that every word would hurt her. So I stopped talking. Maybe that was foolish, but I loved Aunt Lisa very much." The recording continued. Sophie's account. Every detail, the phone call, the threat, the fear, 9 years of silence. "My mother took me to the pediatrician. She told the doctor it was something genetic, that I couldn't speak. But I could speak. I could choose to. I could even speak when I did. I was just afraid of hurting him." When the recording ended, there was silence, a heavy, oppressive silence. Emma stared at the tablet as if she were teething and about to bite it. "No," she said. "He can't. Take me out." Selective mutism. We'll explain it in writing. The child communicates only by writing, not by voice. He can't speak. The doctor said so. Morrison lowered his voice. It became more effective. "Ms. Whitmore, the medical records say your daughter has been diagnosed with selective mutism. This is a psychological condition resulting from trauma, fueled by fear. Your daughter may be silent. She doesn't have to be. You made her silent for 9 years. Emma stood up. The chair swung backward. "This is impossible. This is nonsense. This isn't a child I tore apart. He was sick and I treated him well. I took him to the doctor. I gave him care. He's silent because of that medical condition. It's genetic. He communicates by writing. Maybe Lisa tricked him into talking. Maybe she brought out selective mutism. It's you. You're responsible. He's yours! The park was in uproar. Ms. Whitmore, we also have questions regarding the $180,000 unauthorized withdrawal. He laid bank records on the table. 14 months. Withdrawals. Under $15,000 each time. Just below the level that would trigger federal reporting. You know these things. You've planned them meticulously. And, Morrison raised his hand, these are also there. Mail, between Emma and Warren. Deposit transfers. About my mental disability. About my financial management. Fake therapist notes. Doctor's reports are false. This is fraud, Morrison said. Forgery. And, the most important part, 9 years of psychological abuse inflicted on the child. This has become a federal case. Money transfers across state borders. The FBI is involved. David bowed his head. His shoulders shook. He was crying. I want a lawyer, Emma said sharply. Good idea, said Park, a separate lawyer. Because, Ms. Whitmore, you're under arrest. The handcuffs were put on. Her arms were tied behind her back. Emma was still talking. She was trying to explain, to justify herself, to manipulate, but there was no one left listening. Video is off, of the laptop. Sophie shook my hand. Is it over? He asked. Yes, I said. It's over. As the days passed, the picture became clearer. Details I had initially thought insignificant were aligning. Certain behaviors were being deliberately concealed. People found it safer to withhold the truth than to speak it. Silence had become a habit. I wondered what lay behind this silence. Each new realization caused me to question my previous thoughts. As I began to understand what was happening, a weight settled within me. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. There was a deliberate silence. Approaching the truth was unsettling. But there was no turning back now. The court, Franklin County Family Court, was 2 weeks away. A small room, fluorescent lights, sturdy chairs. The judge sat in his chair. He was an old man with gentle eyes. Sophie sat next to me. She was wearing a purple dress. It was her choice. She combed her own hair. The judge read the files. Fraud, falsification, attempted poisoning, psychological abuse of a child, 9 years of silence. Sophie, said the judge, looking at her, not directly at me. I know you're here. This must be difficult. You acted bravely. You spoke up when you were afraid to speak. I want him to realize that. Sophie nodded. Now I want to ask you a question, said the judge. And your answer is very important. Where would you like to live? Sophie looked at me. She looked at the judge. She rose from her chair. She looked very small, but there was strength in her voice. I want to live with Aunt Lisa. She said, clear, plain. She listened to me even when I couldn't speak. She read books to me. She sat with me. She never made me feel bad. She never made me feel ashamed. She simply loved me. And, she paused, she makes really good pancakes. Quiet laughter erupted in the courtroom. Even the judge smiled. The decision has been signed. Custody has been granted to me. Immediate custody. Full custody. As we were leaving the courthouse, Sophie took my hand and we talked. About penguins. About castles made of waffles. About a dragon named things I didn't know the meaning of. Wonderful things. That night, while we were cooking in my apartment, Sophie talked passionately about dinosaurs. She said the T-Rex was overhyped, that ankylosaurs were true masters of warfare. She analyzed everything with the seriousness of an earth-sharp mind. I just listened. I really listened. Without interrupting, without trying to answer. I just sat and heard his voice. My nephew, my child, a voice that had been silent for 9 years. Weekly therapy, a child trauma specialist. There were difficult days. Old fears returned. Moments when she lost her voice. When she fell back into silence. But there were also many good days. When the sun set, Sophie would sit in the kitchen, and I would listen to her talk while I cooked. She went to school. She made new friends. Not the quiet girl, just Sophie. She showed me pictures. She passed her math test. She got a yellow balloon at the school festival. Emma's case progressed. I was preoccupied with other things. Custody arrangements, trust fund checks, tracking down the stolen money, recovering it, and planning for the future. I didn't want to go to any of the hearings. I didn't want to see Emma. I didn't want to see her face. It was repulsive. It was all pre-planned. Nothing was natural. Nothing was pure. Nothing was clear. Warren knew what was going on in the law office. In exchange for his cooperation with David, the judge gave him a lenient sentence in the case, 9 years. I thought about that. 9 years Sophie lost. 9 years I lost. It's like being imprisoned. Is it fair? I don't know. I sold the family home. It held so many memories. Complex, painful memories. Emma's letters on my mother's bedside table. Emma's greed. My mother's rejection. My mother protecting me even in death. Sophie with part of the sales revenue. The rest is savings. It's accumulating. One Saturday morning, Sophie and I had breakfast on my balcony. Pancakes. Orange juice. Autumn sunshine. No customs. No fuss, just that. Sophie was describing a dream. A penguin was driving a car. A dragon was apologizing. It made no sense. It was perfect. I sipped my coffee. I listened. I really listened. He stood in the middle. He looked at me. "Auntie," he said, "thank you for listening to me. For really listening. I didn't want to leave him. And I didn't. Always," I said. "I always listen." 9 years of silence. Now it never stops. It talks. Laughter. Questions. Stories. Fear sometimes returns. Old habits die hard. But every day is a little better. Every day is a little freer. Emma is in a prison in Indiana. 9 years in prison. Maybe there's some justice there. Maybe. But the 9 years. Sophie lost can't be brought back. No punishment can undo that. But is that important? Sophie is there. Yes, with me. Safe. She chose. She found her voice. And I found my family. Sometimes quiet people aren't weak. They're just waiting for someone they trust enough to talk to. Sophie found her voice. I found mine too. Some stories have happy endings. Ours was just beginning. It wasn't all revealed at once. The truth unfolded in fragments. Some sentences were left unfinished. Some glances conveyed more. Over time, these fragments began to form a whole. I knew what I was looking at. This awareness made the situation more difficult. Ignoring it was no longer an option. Remaining silent meant accepting what had happened. At this point, I had to make a decision. Either I would deny the truth or I would confront it. I knew this decision would have consequences, but the price of silence was higher. 6 months later, before Christmas, our apartment was filled with winter decorations. Sophie wanted it. Lights, garlands, glass snowflakes on the windowsill. There was happiness in every corner, but a concise happiness. A happiness based on memory. Sophie had gone to therapy before finishing. School. Dr. Chen was a child psychiatrist. It had been very difficult at first. She was afraid to use her voice. The old threat still lived within her. The things her mother had said, even after all these years. But Dr. Chen was patient. She accepted the choice of silence from the beginning. Slowly, Sophie began to speak. There were tears in her eyes at the end of the first session. "You know," said a crowd pleaser, "my mother told me your voice hurts people." But the doctor said, "Could that be wrong?" I started thinking about it, and maybe your voice doesn't hurt people. Maybe my mother was just a little too worried. "Yes," said Dr. Chen gently. "Perhaps." Gradually, Sophie socialized. She had friends at school. She joined the reading club, the chess club. She started a science project. She made a volcano model. She showed me the video demonstrating her work, proudly. Nobody said, "The quiet girl is becoming a scientist," but I felt it. In her eyes. The legal proceedings were ending. Emma's case was concluded. 9 years, federal prison, fraud, falsification of evidence, child abuse, no right to appeal. I saw David once in court. He looked frail. His eyes were dry, his gaze empty. Men sometimes follow women. They become powerless. I don't question that. I just observed it. Financial procedures were simplified. Escrow accounts were under supervision. I had to act as a trustee, careful, transparent, and public. The bank representatives recognized me now. "Hello, Lisa," they said. "What are we doing today?" Nobody in the class knew me as the best accountant, but now they did. Loyal, meticulous, leave no tourist behind. I kept my word. I protected the data. Sophie's school periodic exam is coming up. Math, science, vocabulary preparation. In every test page, every line I read, I saw it. Her studying, her focus, the things she was explaining, in writing, now verbally. After the math test, we went home. Sophie took out her bag. She handed me the test paper. "Look," he said, smiling. 95%. I hugged him and lifted him up, shouting. "A legend," I said. "You're the legend." "Never mind," she said, laughing, but her eyes were sparkling. I just took a test, but my mother never saw it. My mother never knew. She paused. My mother. She called Emma her mother. Still, perhaps she always would. But there was no hatred in her voice. Only the truth. Nothing else. You know, I said, looking at her. Your mother will be proud of your courage, even where she is. Will that change? Maybe. But I can tell you, I don't love you because of this test. I love you for who you are. For being brave, for speaking up, for laughing, always. She was silent. Then, I know, she said. She wrapped her arms around my neck. I know this, Auntie. In November, the school psychologist called. It's good news, she said. Sophie's social adjustment is excellent. Her academic performance is advanced. Her social anxiety symptoms are decreasing. Normalization is continuing. There's nothing more to say. Just improvement. How is he at home? Asked the psychologist. Wonderful, I said. Excellent. Last night he gave me an hour-long lecture about dinosaurs, and he keeps talking about birdwatching. The psychologist smiled. They've found their light, he said. Many children who find their voice have also found a little bit of life. The custody hearing at the end of October was over. The judge had signed the final decision. Sophie was officially mine. The papers were on the table. Signatures, seals, legal procedures. But perhaps more importantly, it was always like this. At heart, Sophie is my daughter, regardless of her name. Before Christmas, Gwen threw a party at her house. Close friends, family, not a garden party, but indoors. But it was pleasant, warm. People there, coffee, food. Sophie talked a lot. About school projects, about her teacher, about her new girlfriend. Someone jokingly said to her, "She's very talkative." Sophie smiled. "I've been silent for 9 years," he said casually. "Now I don't want to miss the chance to make some noise." No one questioned it. They knew. Everyone in Gwen's house knew. Who was quiet? Why they were quiet? Who helped them find their voice? Before New Year's, I talked to Sophie about something private. "Would you like to write to your mother?" I asked. Her expression changed, covered, frightened. "No," he said immediately. "Then, I think not. Why?" "Because," I said, "sometimes being forgiven is good for ourselves. Not for others, for you. To express your feelings. You don't have to, but you have the option." He thought. He thought for a long time. "Maybe," he said finally. "Maybe, but later. Not yet." "Okay," I said. "When the time comes. When you're ready." On Christmas morning, we woke up early. I cooked breakfast. Pancakes. Sophie loves them. We put them on maple syrup. Whipped cream. Berries. There were gifts, clothes, books, a ring, a necklace, electronics, her camera. She said she wanted to take photographs. Her figure was protected. When she opened it, there was an album, a photo album. It dropped open. "This is me," she said, turning the pages. Every page is about us together. In my apartment. On our balcony. In the park. At school events. On my way to the therapist. At a science project presentation. Leaving the courthouse. Together. Always together. We're all laughing. Close to each other. In contact with each other. Trust. Love. The decision to be here. This is for you," Sophie said softly. "So you'll remember. Forever. Never forget." I wanted to hug him. Instead, I cried a little. Silently. Tears of happiness. Tears of relief. Tears for me. That evening, we sat by the fire, coffee, chocolate, music. Sophie read a book, aloud. It has a kind of protagonist, a girl, who comes to the city, starts a new life, finds her identity. A kind of coming-of-age story. "Just like you," I said. "Not the same as me," he said. "But maybe close." At the end of January, school started. Sophie, a new year, a new class. 8th grade, pre-high school. She's grown older. More mature. But she's still a child. Still curiosity in her eyes. Still hope. I watched her go to school. Background check. The teachers weren't chosen by me. But I asked one thing of all of them. Respect for silence. Respect for her voice. Respect for her as a human being. No one refused. Sophie was academically advanced. Socially adaptable. Psychologically recovering. Not a child standing in the middle of nowhere. Just Sophie. Just herself. In May, Dr. Chen called me. "I don't want to see Sophie," he said. "She doesn't need therapy anymore. The basics have been addressed. Nobody is living with trauma. She's talking. She's socializing. She's studying. She's healed." My blood froze in my veins. No therapy needed, so it's over? But there was happiness in my heart. Just a simple check-in, said Dr. Chen, once a month. That's all. But we've done the basic work. Yes, we did, together, Sophie. Me, Gwen, Kevin, the court, the better parts of the justice system. Before summer came, Sophie decided to write. To her mother, a letter. And I wanted her to read it too, beforehand, just to see it. Not for security reasons, just to know. She sat by the window and wrote. Pages and pages, in her own handwriting, calm sentences, but there was so much in it. You know, she wrote, when I was silent, my thoughts weren't empty. I was imagining, I was reading, I was observing, I was listening. My heart was still beating, even without your voice. I found an aunt who loves me, who reads to me, who looks at me, who tells me my voice isn't bad. I knew it from the beginning, but now I believe it. I'm not afraid to speak up anymore. I'll be 9 soon. Almost 10. I'll never say we got along, but I forgive what happened, because I want to hear your voice in the world. I can't live any other way. When she finished, she gave it to me. I read it. I cried. My mail, he said. Yes, I said. Send them. These are your words, your feelings. I have the power to do this. The letter is gone. To Emma, at the federal prison in Indiana. Do you know if it will arrive any sooner? I don't know, but Sophie sent it. She published it. She gave it a voice. It was early summer. Sophie was on school vacation. She was sitting on our apartment balcony taking notes. A research project about dinosaur evolution, not homework. Just interest, curiosity. What are you doing? I asked. Research, he said. I want to know how the ankylosaur became as defensive as a human. About evolution, about genes, everything. I smiled. A girl about to start 8th grade, thinking about dinosaur genetics. A nice way to approach it. In the middle of summer, Gwen and I went on vacation. The beach, the hotel, the waves. Sophie saw the ocean for the first time. She saw the shore. She smiled for an hour. No words, just a smile. The light, the movement. We walked along the beach. We looked for shells. He took pictures. He took pictures of me. Gwen. Together. Memories. Caught on camera. That evening, we returned to the hotel. Before Sophie went to bed, she said, "Thank you." Just that. 2 words, but they carried weight. A world of weight. For what? I asked. For life, he said. For the sound. For this place. For everything. She wanted to hug me. I did. I never let go. I never will. In September, school started. 8th grade. At the new school. Bigger building. More students. Sophie recoiled. But she went. Safe, sound, confident. He came home at the end of the first week. I've made a new friend, he said. Her name is Maya. You like books. We're always reading, talking about books. She's quiet too, but for different reasons. Her family understands my quietness. We could be good friends. Perhaps this is enough in writing. A girl who can be heard. Another girl who is silent. Together. No pressure. No lies. Just an agreement. In November, there was an anniversary. The day I learned he saved me. A year had passed. A full year. Count the weeks. Count the days. The taste of the tea. The threat. The voice I heard for the first time. Sophie, do you remember? Yes, she said. I don't want to remember it, but I do remember that bright afternoon, having to write to you about tea. Out of fear. Out of being triggered. But you had to. You were brave, I said. A scared girl, but brave, Sophie said in response. It breaks me. It doesn't break me. It's just the truth. It contained both. Christmas is back again. A second Christmas. Together. Our apartment is filled with decorations, lights, garlands, tree, presents. This year, Sophie gave me a gift. An album, photographs in the second series. Months in between. The beach. School. Therapist. Games. Laughter. Love. There was writing on the cover. In her own handwriting. To my aunt. For everything. For finding the voice. I cried again. At the end of the year, I took Sophie to the doctor. A checkup. Physical. Health. The doctor listened to her. He didn't observe her. He listened. A doctor who wasn't a therapist, but one who recognized the sound of a dog. Excellent, he said. His health is superb. His mood is excellent. There's no cause for concern. After arriving home, Sophie sat on her bed. There was a poster on the wall. Dinosaurs. Galaxies. Ballerina. Art. Interest. Auntie, he said. Can I talk to you for a bit? Always, I said. I think, he said. Maybe one day I'll talk about my mother. Without accusations. Without judgment, simply, she's my mother. What she did was wrong, but she's my mother. And maybe one day she'll understand. But not now. Maybe never, but maybe. I shook my head. Maybe, maybe not. Life is full of maybes. You know what I can do? She said. I can start by being myself. By using my voice. By being heard. You listen to me. They listen at school. My friends listen. I listen to myself. Maybe that's enough. Yes, that was enough. 9 years of silence. Then a year. Just 1 year. But how many memories? How many laughs? How many words? How many books? How many alurlar? How many fish? How many smiles? A little while later, Sophie fell asleep. The room was dark. After she switched off the light. Outside the window, the city was glittering. Car sounds. People's noise. Life. Sophie slept peacefully. Comfortable. Safe. Herself. She slept knowing that her voice might be heard. Knowing that it would be heard during the day. What he noticed, perhaps, was the same thing I noticed. Silence is not weakness. It is hard to listen to. Listening is sometimes more important than hearing. Silence can be protection. Being heard can be freedom. Sophie's voice has been found. My family members have also been found. Some stories have happy endings. Some stories are just beginning. Some stories are lived in complete joy. Ours is a combination of all of these. When the truth came out, nothing remained the same. Some questions were answered. Others remained unanswered. It took time to understand what had happened. When everything became clear, the emotions became heavier. I knew now that what had happened wasn't a simple coincidence. I realized that silence has a price. The past didn't change, but my perspective did. Some truths don't heal, they only awaken. I had to move on with this awareness. Not every story has a happy ending, but every story leaves a mark. This was one of them.